Marcus Chen had worked the night shift at the Metropolitan Museum of Natural History for 17 years. He knew every shadow, every creak of the old wooden floors, and every strange sound the ancient building made when the wind blew through its corridors. Nothing surprised him anymore. He had seen teenagers try to sneak in after hours. He had chased away homeless people looking for shelter. He had even found a family of raccoons living in the Egyptian wing once. But nothing in his long career had prepared him for what happened on that cold November night. The museum had recently acquired a new exhibit. It was a statue found deep in the mountains of Peru, buried under thousands of tons of rock. Scientists estimated it was over 50,000 years old, which made no sense because humans were not supposed to have the technology to carve something so detailed back then. The statue was made of a metal that no one could identify. It stood 8 feet tall and depicted a figure that was clearly not human. It had 4 arms, elongated head, and eyes that seemed to follow visitors wherever they walked. Marcus did not like the statue. He avoided that section of the museum whenever possible. Something about it made his skin crawl. But his supervisor had asked him to do extra rounds near the new exhibit because of the security concerns. Many people wanted to see this mysterious artifact, and some might try to steal it. It was past midnight when Marcus walked into the gallery where the statue stood. His flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating display cases filled with ancient pottery and tools. The beam finally landed on the statue, and Marcus felt that familiar chill run down his spine. He stood there for a moment, watching it, feeling foolish for being afraid of a piece of metal. Then the eyes began to glow. At first, Marcus thought he was imagining it. Maybe his flashlight was reflecting off the metal in a strange way. But the glow grew brighter, changing from a faint shimmer to a deep blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The temperature in the room dropped so suddenly that Marcus could see his breath forming clouds in front of his face. His flashlight slipped from his fingers and clattered on the marble floor. The sound echoed through the empty museum like a gunshot. Marcus wanted to run, wanted to scream, wanted to do anything except stand there frozen in terror. But his legs refused to obey him. The statue moved. It was subtle at first, just a slight turning of the head. Then the 4 arms lifted from their frozen positions, and the fingers flexed as if waking from a long sleep. The blue glow spread from the eyes to trace patterns across the entire body, illuminating symbols and writing that had been invisible before. A voice filled the room. It did not come from the statue exactly. It seemed to come from everywhere at once, vibrating through the walls, the floor, and even through Marcus's bones. "How long?" the voice asked. It spoke in a language Marcus had never heard, yet somehow he understood every word perfectly. "How long have I slept?" Marcus tried to speak, but only a strangled sound came out. He cleared his throat and forced himself to answer. "The scientists say the statue is 50,000 years old." The being inside the statue was silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, there was something like sadness in its voice. 50,000 cycles. My people are truly gone then. Marcus slowly bent down and picked up his flashlight, his hand shaking so badly that he nearly dropped it again. "What are you?" he managed to ask. "I am Vexel. I am a keeper. My duty was to watch over this world until the seedlings could grow strong enough to join the greater community of stars. But something went wrong. I was damaged. I fell into sleep mode." The statue's glowing eyes focused on Marcus with an intensity that made him want to look away. "Tell me, small one, what species now rules this planet?" "Humans," Marcus said. "We're called humans. I do not recognize this designation. You must be one of the seedling species. How far have you progressed? Have you discovered fire yet? Have you learned to cultivate plants?" Despite his fear, Marcus felt a strange surge of pride. He straightened his shoulders and looked directly at those glowing blue eyes. "We've done a lot more than that. We've built cities that touch the clouds. We've created machines that think. We've split the atom and harnessed its power. We've even walked on the moon. The statue was absolutely still. The blue patterns on its surface pulsed faster, as if processing this information. You have reached space? The seedlings have reached space? Not just reached it. We've sent robots to other planets. We've launched probes that have left our solar system entirely. We've put space stations in orbit where people live and work for months at a time. Vexel took a step forward, and Marcus instinctively took a step back. The statue was enormous up close, and its alien features were even more unsettling when they moved with fluid grace. This cannot be correct. The seedlings I observed were primitive creatures, barely distinguishable from the other animals. They had potential, yes, but they required guidance. They required protection. Without the keepers, they should have destroyed themselves long ago. Marcus thought about all the wars, all the conflicts, all the times humanity had come close to wiping itself out. He thought about the atomic bombs, the world wars, the diseases, and the disasters. But he also thought about all the times humans had pulled themselves back from the brink. He thought about the scientists who cured diseases, the diplomats who negotiated peace, and the ordinary people who showed kindness to strangers. We almost did destroy ourselves, Marcus admitted, more than once. But we didn't. We learned. We adapted. We kept going. Vexel lowered itself to one knee, bringing its face closer to Marcus's level. This close, Marcus could see that the being's features were not as alien as he had first thought. There was something almost human-like in the shape of its face, the set of its eyes. Perhaps this was intentional, designed to make the keepers less frightening to the species they watched over. The seedlings I knew were afraid of everything, Vexel said. They feared the dark. They feared predators. They feared each other. Fear was supposed to drive them toward community, toward cooperation. But too much fear should have paralyzed them. Fear still drives us, Marcus said. But we learned to face it. We learned that the only way to survive was to keep moving forward, even when we were terrified. And the darkness? How did you conquer the darkness? Marcus held up his flashlight and clicked it on, shining the beam across the gallery. We made our own light. First with fire, then with electricity. Now we can turn night into day whenever we want. The blue patterns on Vexel's body shifted and changed, forming new configurations that Marcus could not interpret. Remarkable, truly remarkable. In all my cycles of watching over young species, I have never seen this. The seedlings were supposed to need us. They were supposed to depend on our guidance for thousands of generations before they could stand on their own. But you did it alone. Marcus felt a complicated mix of emotions swelling in his chest. Pride, certainly, but also a deep sadness for this being who had woken up to find that everything it knew was gone. "Where are the other keepers?" he asked. "What happened to your people?" Vexel stood again and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights that sparkled like stars against the night sky. "I do not know. Something catastrophic must have occurred. When I was sent to this world, the Keeper civilization spanned 1,000 systems. We were ancient when your ancestors were learning to walk upright. We thought we would last forever." The statue turned back to Marcus. "But nothing lasts forever. Not even the Keepers." "I'm sorry," Marcus said, and he meant it. "Do not be. This is the way of things. Species rise and fall like waves upon an ocean. What matters is not how long a species survives, but what they do with the time they have." Vexel's eyes seemed to glow even brighter. "And your species has done something extraordinary. You have exceeded every projection, every model, every expectation. Without guidance, without protection, you have lifted yourselves from the mud and reached for the stars." Marcus did not know what to say. He was just a security guard. He had never done anything particularly special or important. But standing there in the darkness with this ancient being, he felt like he was representing all of humanity. "What will you do now?" Marcus asked. Vexel was quiet for a long time. My duty was to watch and guide the seedlings until they were ready. But you no longer need guidance. You have found your own way. The statue looked at its 4 hands, turning them over as if seeing them for the first time. Perhaps I can find others of my kind. Perhaps I can discover what happened to our civilization. Or perhaps I will simply observe. Your species is fascinating. I would like to see what you become. You could stay, Marcus offered. There's a lot we could learn from you, and much I could learn from you, Vexel replied. But I think my presence would complicate things. Your species has achieved greatness through your own efforts. You should continue that journey without interference from relics of a dead civilization. The blue glow began to fade from Vexel's body. The patterns dimmed and the eyes grew darker. Marcus realized that the being was preparing to leave or to return to its long sleep. Wait, Marcus said urgently. Will anyone believe me about this conversation? Vexel's eyes brightened one last time, and Marcus felt something brush against his mind, gentle and warm. I will leave a gift, a small piece of my memory. When your scientists examine me again, they will find something new. A message. A map to the stars. Consider it a graduation present from the keepers to humanity. The statue went still. The eyes faded to black, and the temperature in the room slowly returned to normal. Marcus stood there in the darkness, his flashlight beam illuminating a statue that looked exactly as it had before, ancient and mysterious and utterly motionless. For several minutes, Marcus did not move. He half expected the statue to come alive again, to tell him that this had all been some kind of test, but nothing happened. He was alone in the gallery with nothing but shadows and silence. When Marcus finally left the museum that morning, the sun was just beginning to rise over the city. He watched the light spread across the buildings and streets, painting everything in shades of gold and pink. Millions of people were waking up, starting their days, completely unaware that humanity had just received validation from an ancient being who had watched over them since the beginning. Marcus smiled and walked home. He had a story that no one would believe, and he was perfectly fine with that. Some things were too big for words. Some truths were meant to be held quietly in the heart, treasured like precious secrets. Humanity had done the impossible. They had risen from nothing, faced every challenge, and reached for the stars without anyone holding their hand. And somewhere out there, among the countless galaxies and endless darkness of space, an ancient keeper was watching them with something very close to pride. The flashlight that Marcus had dropped was still in his pocket. He had picked it up without thinking, an old habit from years of making rounds, but now it felt different in his hand. It felt like a symbol of everything humans had accomplished. They had taken the darkness and filled it with light. They had taken their fear and transformed it into courage. They had taken their small, fragile world and made it the starting point for an infinite journey. Whatever came next, Marcus knew that humanity was ready. They had been ready all along. The keepers had simply failed to notice.